All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back for round feature match. David Miller Burn against Josh Burgoa on Infect. Like we are off to the race. Classic Burns Goblin Guide. All right, looks as though the Infect player has led off on wins Island. And he leads out. Taps. David untaps. Up. All right, folks, it looks like we got our audio problems corrected. David Miller on turn 2 leads out with Monastery Swift Spear and a Goblin Guide attack. Suspends a Rift Bolt. Looks like Josh is willing to take the damage. Falls to 14. And takes a draw step. This is a dangerous position to be in for the burn player. Infect is capable of kills virtually out of nowhere. And the brainstorm is a really good way to set that up. So Josh will draw 3. And we'll see if he is able to assemble the remainder of his combo. Now, this is a little telling from the burn player. Anytime they knowingly, assuming he knows what he's playing against and how it works, which I assume David understands how Infect works, if they're willingly tapping out, they either have nothing and have to go for the fastest kill they can, or they have a Fire Blast and are hoping to utilize that as protection in the event Josh would go for a turn 2 combo kill. Looks as though Josh did not have a fetch land or doesn't want to use one, and he attacks for 1 with the Glistener Elf. So, Infect goes to, or I'm sorry, the burn player, David goes to 1 Infect, and Josh ships the turn back, it looks like. Might deploy a second elf. Looks like he's trying to protect himself or his creature. Sure. Does no such thing. Allows the Rift Bolt to resolve on the Glistener Elf. David falls to 16. Fetches another mountain. Looks as though David's deck is a little shy on some of the duels he might be looking for, so he's running a Sacred Foundry. Fortunately for him, in this matchup, life total is fairly irrelevant. As long as he's at greater than 1, he's not in much danger. I think that land was the draw for turn, because I believe all 3 of these cards existed last turn, both the Lightning Bolt, the Price of Progress, and a Fire Blast. Now, assuming Josh has counterspells of any sort. Nah, no, that explains the lack of fetch land. He set up so that the Goblin Guide trigger would net him a land. Looks like we are going to see a Price of Progress pre-damage to trigger the Monastery Whisperer a second time. So this would be a total of 5 damage on the attack and 4 more from the Price of Progress. Crop rotation in response to the Price of Progress will allow Josh to go find his basic forest if he so chooses and prevent 2 of the damage from Price of Progress. Worth noting here, though, that Miller has enough burn to really close this one out. 2 from the Price of Progress plus 5 more should leave Josh at 7. And if I was David, I'd consider just going for it all right here. It walks into a daze, which is problematic, but the extra damage is just so important, especially when you're running low on hand and resources. The lightning bolt would drop Burgoa down to 9. Oof, and without a counterspell, that's gonna do it. Oh, but there the daze will save the day against the fire blast. So we should have 6, 7, 8, 9. Infect player will fall to 3. Oh, maybe just 2. Miscounted. Now Josh is somewhat on the ropes. Blocking's difficult. It's a little short on mana, not having any blue for counterspells. Not the position you want to be in with Infect. Brainstorm. Now, assuming David bricks on a spell that can kill Josh, he actually can still block his way out of this turn with the Glistener Elf we saw from before. And there that is. Now, assuming he has Invigorates or some sort of pump spells, he can actually keep his... excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, we have a judge call. I'll be right back. All right, and we are back from that judge call. It's like Josh has taken 1 from the previous attack, and he now has a backup Glistener Elf. Looks as though no pump spells were to be had either. So, Block's getting a little desperate here. Now, if any of Miller's draws include 1 mana burn spells, this game's just over because a daze can't save Josh here, and he can't afford to pay for a Force of Will in that he has only 1 life. David, considering his options here, indicates to me that he had a dead draw. Now, if Josh has a backup daze, he does not, and Burn takes it in sort of a clutch win there. Game 1. Now, onto the sideboards. I have to find these deck lists. I apologize for not having these ready. But David Miller found his, and Well, I know what Josh has got in his sideboard, so we'll just go from there. We'll start with David Miller. He has 2 Ensnaring Bridges, 2 Destructive Reveries, 2 Exquisite Firecrafts, a Pyroblast, a Red Elemental Blast, a Volcanic Fallout, 1 Relic of Progenitus, 1 Pyrostatic Pillar, 1 Pithing Needle, 1 Atarka's Command, 1 Sulfuric Vortex, and 1 Searing Blaze. Good cards to bring in here. The Pyroblast and Red Elemental Blast are serviceable, although you're not typically trying to fight a counter war, especially since the counter spells aren't the ones that you're most worried about. You're actually more worried about the pump spells out of Infect, so you can't counter those. Volcanic Fallout I think is a decent call because it's both uncounterable and I believe it's an instant, so that has a lot of utility in this matchup. Pithing Needle is solid at stopping Inkmoth Nexus, which is the worst creature for Burn to try and deal with. Um, and the one of Searing Blaze I think is a really solid. That'll come in to complement the 2 that he already has main deck. Cards to bring out. Most likely, the cards worth bringing out here are um, maybe one or so lands. Probably the Stomping Ground, if I had to guess, because um, you just don't need. He doesn't need the green mana, and it's the weakest of his lands. Um, and then probably some number of Lava Spikes, as the card can't be used against creatures, and that's you really want your burn spells to be good against the creatures. Um, on Josh's side, he has a kind of diversified sideboard here. Let's just pull that up real quick. I know he's got the white splash package. So we've got 1 Flusterstorm, 1 Croson Grip, 1 Seal of Primordium, 1 Force of Will, 3 Swords to Plowshares, 3 Rest in Peace, a Savannah, Sylvan Safekeeper, a Pithing Needle, Sylvan Library, and a Grafdigger's Cage. So in this matchup, you want the Flusterstorm, the extra Force of Will. It's arguable the Swords to Plowshares can come in if you think you're fighting a creature race, which means or a game that means you would also need the Savannah. Although in my experience, the removal is not pivotal to this matchup. The Sylvan Safekeeper is of course great, keeping your creatures alive and winning the fights over keeping your creatures alive. So probably just the 2 counters and the Sylvan Safekeeper. He should probably remove. I know he's got a main deck Viridian Corruptor that's pretty weak in this matchup. Um, it's arguable that the Gitaxian Probes because the alternate life cost on them is tough. Um, but even though then you need to keep your blue mana count kind of high against yeah, to try and use Force of Wills against burn. Um, so it's actually defensible to take out one of the blighted agents as well for the same reason that like um, they're a little slower and burn rarely has blockers. Um, but you need to keep them like I mentioned because you need to keep your blue creature count high. So the specifics of what should come out is a little fuzzy, um, but some combination of Gitaxian Probes and the like, and the Viridian Corruptor. Um, so while we have a minute here and the players are resolving their mulligans, I'm going to take a second to talk about MTG Training Grounds. That's the brand that's bringing you the Legacy Tour today. Um, MTG Training Grounds provides video and audio content, mostly about Legacy. It provides the feature matches for the Legacy Tour. They do webcasts and podcasts uh, about Legacy. That series is called the Legacy's Allure, and they do the Arena, which is sort of a versus series style video, um, where 2 uh, premier Legacy decks are showcased, sort of battling out best of 5 for no real stakes other than to provide you with all of the learning and the info on how to play these decks. Check them out on YouTube or Facebook. It's like Josh has taken a mulligan and is currently working on resolving his Scry new Vancouver mulligan rule. Looks like he is keeping it where it is, or it doesn't matter, because he is fetching it away. sort of the downside to a lot of decks in Legacy when they have to mulligan. The new Vancouver mulligan rule doesn't actually help them as much because fetch lands are so prevalent in the format. But them's the beats. Anyway, Josh leads off with a Noble Hierarch. Looks like David's draw for turn was a 4th mountain. Definitely not the card you want. Anywhere beyond the 3rd usually is more than enough. Looks like he also has the one of Taiga in his hand. Probably wait to deploy that one as it is valuable and it is wastelandable. So a Lava Spike will drop Josh to 16, and we'll see things head back to the Infect player. Can't see what the draw yielded, but I know I saw a Glistener Elf earlier, so definitely gonna see another creature deployed this turn. Looks like that creature will be a Blighted Agent. And it looks as though Burgoa's hand is missing a 2nd land. But it's actually not as big a problem as it seems. Ooh, Searing Blaze. This is going to be targeting the Blighted Agent, but a Daze will take care of that. And Josh is firmly in the driver's seat now. Any pump spell or two here is really solid for Infect. And it's a minimum of a 2-point attack. All Josh has to worry about is something like a Fire Blast from Miller. Brainstorm. It's a good card in this situation when you're trying to polish off your combo kill or just find another land, to get rid of some dead cards. It's not clear yet what Josh has found. He's deliberating what to put back though, so it seems to me like this is not the most ideal brainstorm. He probably didn't find all of the pieces he needs. And an attack for 2, yep, clearly agrees. Josh missing a land drop again. Now David has the Fire Blast. That's a tough one. Fire Blast is a very good card in the burn archetype, and definitely the kind of card you'd want to have in this scenario. Sort of the insurance policy against the Infect creatures. Allows you to a little more safely tap out. Looks as though David is deliberating if he wants to cast his Monastery Swiftspear or probably just go for the Rift Bolt right now. I think the Rift Bolt is a really risky move in that it can be countered by a Daze if Josh has found one. It's also susceptible to something like Flusterstorm or Spell Pierce. And any pump spell will protect the see the Daze there is just so good against that line specifically. So there's the Fire Blast. It seems David is fearful, and there is a Force of Will, an altered Force of Will, pitching a 3rd Daze. So now David is low on resources, and Josh has weathered the storm. Now Josh apparently has no pump spells, but he has a decent clock going in the Hierarch Blighted Agent combination, and he's pretty much dealt with all of the bad burns, the bad beats. So here's 2 more from the Infect player, and we'll likely see another creature deployed. Yep, this gives Josh a backup in the event his creature dies. Can't tell what the draw there was. Looks like a Lava Spike. Not exactly the card you're looking for. hard to say whether the Eidolon would be the better play here or the Swift Spear, but none of them are great. All right, Eidolon of the Great Revel it is, and back to the Infect player. Now, fortunately for Josh, he has a way around this with that unblockable Blighted Agent. And looks like the last card in his hand was green. I'm not sure what else he's got, but it's coming in for 2. And we will see a kick Vines of Astwood for lethal. And his assumption is that David's last card is not another Fire Blast. And it is not. Josh Burgoa takes game 2, and we are going to head to game 3. Now, I noticed Miller still had his lava spikes in there, so it's not clear to me exactly what he removed in this matchup. But like I said before, I think the first things to go outside of maybe the stomping ground should be those lava spikes, just because they're not serviceable as a removal spell. That and the price of progress, which Infect is also able to play around pretty effectively by only deploying, like you saw in that game, just 1 land or sometimes only 2, making it marginally more effective than a lava spike anyway. The price of progress, that is. Um, like I said, I do think the Pyroblast and the Elemental Blast are good considerations, along with the Volcanic Fallout and the Searing Blaze, and potentially the Pithing Needle if he's worried about um, Inkmoth Nexus. On the Infect player's side, I don't think anything changes. It looks like he brought in the Force of Will. He probably brought in the Flusterstorm. All those cards are still great. Like I said, the Corruptor should be out, and the rest of your cards are they're all useful and somewhat interchangeable as spells that counter burn spells. Now, this hand for burn looks good. It's missing a second land, but it has a Grim Lavamancer, which is really excellent against Infect. So we'll see if he leads out on that or if he tries to bait with another creature first. I personally think the chance that Josh has a Force of Will means that he should probably lead on the Goblin Guide, especially since he can't die this turn anyway, or on his first turn anyway. He doesn't absolutely have to have that Grim Lavamancer right away, and it helps hide some of what's in his hand. And there is the Goblin Guide. See if Josh counters it, which it would not be. So Glistener Elf is the reveal, and Josh falls to 18. Draw for turn. We have Basic Forest into Noble Hierarch, and we know that he has Glistener Elf. So if Miller misses his land drop here, which he has, that's the real cost to keeping that 1-lander with all those 1-mana spells, is they don't go the distance without it. Now David knows he can afford to play the Grim Lavamancer around a Daze this turn because there's no island, but it looks as though David is simply going to continue attacking and put the pressure on, maybe force Josh to have a faster hand. Now, that Daze represents a huge problem for David. Without a second land, Josh can then counter virtually anything at a whim. And here comes a Blighted Agent, I believe. This whole scenario is a good setup. The Blighted Agent is certainly protected currently by the Daze, and that non-land draw means that the burn player is running out of time here. Infect can finish the game off very quickly, and the Daze means that there's no way to play around the counter spells. Now, David, if David thinks that Josh doesn't have the full combo in hand right now, he could somewhat force the issue by trying to Red Elemental Blast the Blighted Agent right now. It'll certainly draw out the Daze, but it means that his Lightning Bolt may become live next turn. Alternately, he could try and Lightning Bolt first, but that means that if Josh has an Invigorate, he doesn't even have to use his Daze or play around it. It's a tough position for the burn player. sort of the problem with the burn deck is that if you keep a land light, sort of a soft hand, you're not guaranteed to get anywhere. And as we noted, this will almost certainly draw out the days. Could potentially um, could potentially be something like a spell pierce, but I think um, spell pierce is even better than days in this position. So I think we'll definitely see the days and maybe some mana floated for something like a brainstorm or an end of turn crop rotation, something like that. Crop rotating for a Pendlehaven here increases the clock, and there is the days. Looks like Josh had another fetch land in hand too, so if he has to, he can. Oh, now he's got two fetch lands at least, so maybe a little mana heavy. Now Josh is still required to come up with a kill pretty quickly here, because he's still going to be facing 4 damage a turn for the next turn or two. But I see a Vines in hand, and that paired up with something like an Invigorate is a one-shot kill right now. So Josh chooses not to play a land prior to attacking. Little unorthodox, but here we have another fetch land. The one revealed to the Goblin Guide trigger. And here we have a Glistener Elf, presumably just going to hold the fort on defense here. And looks like the draw was another Lightning Bolt, which is always a good card. It's just somewhat unfortunate in this spot because we know Josh has the vines to keep one of his creatures alive if he has to. So any of David's targeted removal spells will be effectively countered here, and that's assuming Josh doesn't have an actual counterspell to use. We will see, though. I think the debate here is whether to attack first and see if you can draw out a block prior to Lightning Bolt. That way you could save it for the Blighted Agent. The downside to that is you don't know if the Blighted Agent will actually die. I think this is probably the better line, though. See if you can get the block first. A Berserk reveals. Now that is inherently dangerous because any other pump spell combined with Berserk is lethal. So David wants to read Berserk, sort of spell your fate. Now, Josh should know that outside of a land draw for David, there is no. Oh, Josh has chosen to bring in the Swords to Plowshares from the sideboard, so he's actually going to reduce how much damage he's taking this turn, only fall to 8, and get rid of that. So his clock is noticeably better now. He has presumably at least 3 more turns till he would die from. I'm sorry, 4 more turns from just the Goblin Guide, and David leaving the land open is a good indicator that he has a response should Josh go for a combo kill here. Josh needs an Invigorate to make this a done deal. We'll see if he has it. If he only uses the Vines of Vastwood as his pump spell, he would need to have a backup pump spell of some sort or a counter spell to fight over the Lightning Bolt. Can't quite see Josh's hand. We know he has a Berserk. Brainstorm. That is a good way to find the missing pieces, that's for sure. These brainstorms are always tough. Now it looks to me like Josh has found Pendelhaven. Now, and Pendelhaven's a good draw in this spot, in that it can be used defensively to keep Goblin Guide from attacking through. Um, yeah, see now Josh is capable of attacking. Well, he's attacking for 3 in this case. David simply allows the attack. Now this seems to me like Josh might be holding back the Glistener Elf uh, for a block this turn if he has to. Potentially there's another one in the waiting. Yeah, there is. Sure. And this means that next turn, um, any single creature attacking is lethal. David has decided to forego that, though, hoping for a land draw, which he has not found. So I believe that is the end of the line for the burn player. Because David is going to be forced to use his lightning bolt proactively on the blighted agent before he wants to. Looks like we are questioning whether the reveal here is required to occur. It is, and that is the same uh, yeah, Windswept Heath we saw from earlier. Now David, like I said, he's forced to use his lightning bolt early because Josh can actually make it happen by using the Pendelhaven on the Blighted Agent and then simply attacking with the Exalted trigger. The Blighted Agent will have 4 toughness and can survive a lightning bolt naturally. Then he's in the clear to use that Berserk to finish the game off. It actually would have been better. Well, actually, it doesn't matter because we know that Josh has the vines to to protect his Blighted Agent. So there is the pump followed by an attack. And this will give the Blighted Agent 4 toughness if David doesn't respond, and if he doesn't, he knows that the Berserk is already in Josh's hand and will end the game now. Yep, and this will be the defensive vines, or just a. Actually, this could just be the kill with the pump vines. You don't even need to use the Berserk. That alone represents 6 damage, which is more than enough poison to finish the game. And there you have it. Infect takes this match 2-1. Hang around, and we will be back with round 3 in about 20 minutes, maybe a little less, 15. Thanks for joining us.